Hello, beautiful community. Just a couple of words to share together at this time. I'm sorry I can't be with you more. I really tried for health reasons, but just tonight it proved impossible. Self-protect, please, because if you can only absorb 4 kilos of bad political news, don't put 8 into yourself. Try to be gentle with that. And it's important to try to put this overwhelmingly likely Trump victory now into an historical perspective, right, where it makes sense. And I'm going to try to be there to help you with that. Because one of the problems with Trump voters is that politics has stopped making sense to them. But one of the problems with Harris voters is that politics has stopped making sense to them because they can't make sense of why Trump voters voted Trump. And I promise I'm going to be there with you for this conversation. I'm a very big fan. I'm just going to make a couple of analytical points, and there is about 20 or 30 of them, but I'll just touch on one or two, whichever ones come to mind first. I'm a very big fan of defeating disgraceful post-truth populists, because the priority when you're dealing with them is first defeat them, and second analyze what you may have done to bring them about, right? It's constructive navel gazing second, effective political action first. But once you've lost to them, especially once you've lost to them repeatedly, it's important to reflect. And it's important at the level of this collapse of the center that we often talk about, for centrist liberals to understand not just how far Trump reflects, embodies the shape of society today, but also how far you, that centrist liberal, has caused the shape of society today, right? So this is a time for some reflective navel gazing, both at the level of how you win, but also at the level of what did we do to bring this about, actually, that could also be a central part of the reason why we keep losing to this. Because the story of centrist politics losing to Trumpism is a story that is still just beginning. A lot of people felt 2016 was an aberration. It wasn't. It was the earliest inflection of a wave that is still on the rise. We're not going to reach its peak until the 2030s, by which time we're going to have a different quality of post-truth populists, more disciplined, more hard-nosed than Trump. So it's really a time not just for reflection at the level of historical understanding, but reflection at the level of why it is that certain things keep happening repeatedly and look like they will carry on happening repeatedly. What are the ways in which voters feel profoundly left out and profoundly feel all of the emotions we usually talk about, right? Distrust, sense of being betrayed, sense of being disempowered, and a sense of finding politics opaque that propels people into engaging in politics outside of cause and effect, right? Because when you vote for Trump, you're operating outside of cause and effect, because it's actually not at all the case that there's a way that Trump's going to do by a particular mechanism something you want. But you no longer think like that. You think outside of cause and effect. How does that happen? What causes it? What kinds of dismissal, exclusion, disadvantage, being treated in an undignified way, what kinds of things cause that? We will have a separate conversation about Ukraine. This is not good, but it's part of a pattern. In other words, what you wanted with the Harris victory is a kind of break put on a pattern that was going to carry on anyway, which is US withdrawal from a constructively strategic relationship with global conflict. America is, for all of its retreat, a uniquely powerful country, not just militarily, but at the level of soft power. And a Trump victory is very much a worrying sign for European democracy, because actually strike that, it's wrong. It's not a worrying sign. The pattern is there, so Trump's victory doesn't cause the pattern, but it's a worrying inflection right along the line of that pattern, because European democracy is almost as dependent on American democracy culturally as European security is dependent on on American provision of security guarantees. And one more theme I'll just touch on is about the acceptance of the election result as legitimate by US citizens who are Trump's opponents, right? If it's a legitimate election, you have to accept it as a legitimate election, and you therefore have to accept the winner as a legitimate occupier of their office. It's possible they may then go on to do in office illegitimate things, and then you have to react to that. But it's very important to minimize the politics of enemies unnecessarily, because the politics of enemies begets the politics of enemies, and it's always a vicious cycle. And now I can just say, health allowing, I'm going to be here, and that understanding the world isn't therapy, it's not therapeutic, but really understanding the world is an important precondition of feeling a modicum of depth and richness and fulfillment about being in it. And not understanding the world is really scary and really terrifying. A lot of people are going to feel that. There's a lot of people who are scared and find the world unintelligible, who won today in the United States. There are a lot of people who are scared and find the world unintelligible, who lost today in the United States. More time together and updates soon. Lots of love.